Let me hit this baby here. 3, 2, 1. Roll. Welcome back to the Strategy Sprints podcast. I'm your host, Simon Severino. And today my guest is the founder of Bento and of Talent Tree. Welcome, everybody, Jesse Hanley.
Hey, mate. Thanks for having me on. That was a pretty cool intro. I haven't seen one of those before, so that was awesome.
So cool to have you here. And we will talk how to stair-step from being freelancer to agency owner. And when you're an agency owner, how to stay sane and not reinvent the wheel all the time, but productize and make your life better. But first, Jesse, what are you currently creating?
At the moment, every morning I kind of wake up and I work on Bento. That is kind of my creative pursuit at the moment, even though it's a software business. Every day I kind of wake up, I have my customers ping me, they ask me for things, they've got requests, and me being a self-taught developer, and my developer's currently on break, so all that kind of responsibility lays on me. I kind of like hack on those features for my customers and help them out. It's so day-to-day, that's kind of what I'm creating. I'm also trying to build a nice little home here. I live in Japan. So the other stuff that I'm creating is kind of my home here in Japan. So that's what I'm creating.
How did you come up with the name and with the company?
With Bento? I mean, I've always been super interested in Japan in general. There's actually a weird story about it. I found my background's in search engine. We can talk about the agency stuff. My background was search engine optimization. And I was always on the prowl for good expired domains. Expired domains tend to have a lot of value behind them. You can easily rank them. And I actually came across an old Silicon Valley startup that had run out of money. The founder was selling all of his assets, including @Bento on Twitter and on Facebook, and a great domain. It had a lot of really good links from publishers and all that. And so I bought it, and I bought it as an SEO, and I didn't really know what to do with the domain or anything with like the assets for a pretty long time until I met a guy called Andrew Culver, who became kind of like the first engineer that I hired to build out what is now Bento. But that took a couple of years. Cross between my SEO background and kind of an interest in Japan. I'm now living there. That's kind of how I came up with the name.
Why Japan?
Growing up, I just, I used to like animes, and I don't know, man, Japan's cool. Like there's a lot, it's not even the anime stuff. Japan's just, it's a cool place to live. The lifestyle where I'm actually down south in Kyushu, so down the bottom. It's a pretty energetic kind of, it's kind of like the startup-y city of Japan. There's a lot of business, young families, amazing food. You've got the volcanic region around the corner, like all these amazing volcanic kind of onsen towns. You've got the beaches. It's a lot slower paced than like Tokyo and stuff. And the quality of life for the price is actually pretty affordable, especially compared to like where I grew up, like in Sydney, Australia. So building a business in somewhere like Japan is actually, it's hard to stay here, but once you do stay here, it's a pretty affordable country to live.
Sounds great. And so let's dive into your CEO tip, from freelancer to agency owner to productize.
Yeah, so I kind of don't really know where to start, but I can start at like a couple of points. So my journey was basically, I worked full-time in a company. I was the director of marketing there, and basically worked with the boss on a whole bunch of stuff, SEO, paid ads. I was designing stuff all over the place, as you do in like a small company. And then over time, I realized that I'd read some books, 4-hour work week and stuff. And one of the chapters there is like negotiating a remote agreement with your employer. And I was like, yeah, right, like let's try that. So I did. And I had a conversation with my employer, and we negotiated a remote working agreement. Once I locked that in, I just started traveling. And whilst I was traveling, I picked up consulting clients on the road all around the world. A lot of them were in e-commerce, which is why I do quite a lot of e-commerce stuff now. E-commerce and software, and just trying to pay my bills, really, right? And just do whatever it takes. Then as my demand kind of kicked up, I needed more people. And so I started building an agency kind of just out of the need. You just have more demand and you want more money. So you're just like, okay, I am going to find more people to help me with that. And we ended up evolving into kind of a full service agency. And I think a lot of people kind of do that path because you're just trying to pay bills. You've either got a family, or for me, I was just traveling around. I just didn't want to I wanted to live in nicer hostels and hotels and still do my work. So ended up building a full service agency. It's pretty stressful because you're kind of all over the place. You've got some people doing SEO, some people doing content, link building, AdWords, Facebook ads. You're just trying to build. But under that kind of structure, and I didn't really have so much structure at the time. I still had quite a lot to learn. I just found it really, really difficult. And from there, ended up actually trying to work out, all right, well, what was the core service that I offered? What was the single thing that was the least stressful and was really easy to price? And that was an offering that we did, which was basically we found full-time writers and we placed them with firms. So we priced competitively. Clients loved it because they had someone writing on their website Monday to Friday. It was a super simple business. We'll put a writer on your website, they'll write. You're producing 25 to 35,000 words of content a month. Amazing. And then I just made the whole business that, and it was a productized service, still offer it today. And that kind of took off. And then once that took off, so the stair step was freelance, full service agency, Overwhelm, then productized service. And then once that productized service was pretty much automated, I just kind of jump on sales calls when they come. I just work on Bento, which is my software company. And that's a hard company to grow.
Let's dive deeper into that Overwhelm phase, because this is where most listeners are right now. They are fighting to get their pandemic revenues up again. And what usually people do is then they say yes to many opportunities, and then they get into this overwhelming stage. And then when you are fulfilling, you don't have time to work on the business model, on the systems. How did you experience this overwhelming phase, and what made it possible to make the first little changes?
It's a good question. A part of me thinks you have to go through the overwhelm phase. I actually think it's good. I think it's good to get there because it means you've got some demand. You've pushed yourself. I was actually talking to a friend today. Let me see if I can find the book. He said there's a book about the upper limit problem or something. I'm going to butcher this, but you actually may be able to say it better. But your body when you start kind of pushing next levels, your body and your mind starts kind of playing games on you a little bit. It starts bringing in anxieties. I actually felt that a little bit today, I'm going to be honest. Mm-hmm. When you start pushing these barriers, your brain actually starts fighting against you. And it takes kind of friends, networks, coaches, just people to help and kind of support and nurture you to get through that phase. And so at the time when I was really overwhelmed, I was really overwhelmed. My revenue was decent. I had a team, but man, it feels like everyone's got wires on you, right? You got your clients, you've got your team, very overwhelming. And the way that I got out of it was I had a very eye-opening conversation with a friend who basically had a little bit of interest of buying my business at the time. And so he was like, I love your business. At the time, I was like, why? What do you like about it? He saw something. But as we were talking, I started to realize no matter what, I couldn't actually sell it to him. And I was like, well, what are all these blocks? I was so in the sales. I was so much in the sales process. I was helping all the deliverables. I was doing strategy. And I kind of came to the realization that if I wanted this business to be calm and I wanted it to be profitable, I needed to make it sellable. and that's where the kind of restructure came about. And that's where I had to make a lot of really hard decisions. I obviously downsized. I found everyone jobs when I downsized, which was just because I couldn't let everyone go. And so a lot of actually team members went to clients to work full time, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that was a rough time, man. It was really rough, but really happy I came to the other side because the business now we spoke just before the call. It's sellable. I'm currently in talks with even selling it. Don't know if that's going to happen, but no way that would have happened 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But yeah, had to get really focused. But again, I think you got to go through it to realize what's wrong, and then you need
scalable business.
Friends.
This is so important, and this is such a relevant insight that you have right now that 90% of entrepreneurs don't have. We have dozens of them every day in our programs, and we have to work hard to show them that they need to create systems, scalable systems in the very early stage. And they're like, yeah, Simon, now I just need to double my revenue in this quarter. And then we show them, yeah, that's important. But at the same time, you have to start early to think in scalable structures. For example, today in the morning, my wife was seeing on my iPad, I had all the sales calls that happened during the night in the US, and I'm here in Europe. And she was like, how is it possible they say the same things on these sales calls that you say? And I say, well, I have sales scripts. We all talk the same language. And she's like, my goodness, how did you do that? Because you are not training them like every day. You are a terrible people's person. She knows I'm a terrible people's person. I talk 10 minutes to my people per week, but we are so aligned. How did you do it? And I said, I thought from the very beginning in scalable processes, like if we were McKinsey with 40,000 people, even when we were 4 people, because that's the way successful entrepreneurs think from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's also hard to get there mentally. I mean, I had support, but I wasn't listening to it. And I was reading, but I wasn't listening to it. So everything that you're saying, I totally agree with. But man, it's hard. In those early days, you're just trying to pay rent and you're trying to pay the bills. And so you bring on the chaos.
It's
and
so hard.
Yeah.
You have to do the sales and you have to do the product in the first years. And both needs...
and delivery and customer service and finances. And it's a lot. It's a lot. But now it's like, now with the business, it's funny. Every time I start breaking things into processes and coming up with good solutions, I like kind of feel like I can breathe again. Even just recently, I brought on someone just to help with invoicing and doing payroll and stuff. For whatever reason, I like took pride in doing that. I liked sending invoices and then immediately after I got the guy doing it, I was like, why didn't I do this 12 months ago? Like it's like the team's getting paid a lot faster. I thought I was paying fast. This guy pays faster. Invoices are getting sent obviously on time, exactly like I was doing it. And now I don't think about it. But I don't know. It takes like some entrepreneurship maturity maybe to figure that out. I don't know.
And this is important. I can breathe again. So tell us, how did you, now it's working, but I would like to share with our audience what the process was, how you did get out of that overwhelm. What did you try? Did it work immediately? What was your decision-making process?
There was a very clear product and offering. This for the agency, right? There was a very clear offering out of all the things we were doing. We're doing a lot of things. There was one clear offering where it was very obvious people were happy paying for it, and they also didn't churn. Like people that were customers of that service were on for 12 months, 16 months, and happy, and not even talking to us and paying their invoices, right? That's very different for the same invoice size for let's say an AdWords client or a Facebook client or an SEO client that they're not necessarily the best. And so I think identifying that and going, oh, this is a product that can sell. I knew who would buy it. I knew who else would buy it. And I knew how I could get to the same revenue really fast by basically combining those two. I had a clear offering, and also I had clear offering, and I had a good network of people I knew I could sell that offering to. And I just went after it. And it was it's pretty crazy. There's like, even if I look at my revenue graphs, there's like 1 month where it's down, where I'm aggressively restructuring, and then almost immediately back up in 30 days. Which I could only look on at the time. It was just chaos, but looking back, it's cool to see that in the graphs.
These are the scary months, and it's important to push through and to stay steady, because you're doing the right restructuring. Cash will go up again. And I'm so curious.
You don't necessarily know. You hope, right? You hope it's going to work, and so far it has.
If you hope, that's a problem. In entrepreneurship, we want numbers. So what we do is that we put numeric XYZ hypothesis behind every assumption. So I think that this launch will bring 400 leads, 30 clients, 12,000 euro, for example. That's a numeric assumption, XYZ hypothesis. And then with that assumption, we tested 5 times to know the range that will come out. And then when we restructure, in order to make that happen, we do it based on numbers. Now, these are not set in stone because, as we saw this year, markets shift during things. And again, you will have to test assumptions. But when you know that you have tested 5 times and this is the probability and now you execute, then you can go into this pushing through a phase of a cash crunch because you know you are remodeling the ship on an ocean, but you know how the water looks like.
I think when you jump in, just one slight pushback. I think when you jump in from freelancer to agency, then there's not enough numbers there. So there's a lot of feeling in the dark, I think. Now you're right. Like going from productized service to like expanding that and growing that, it's very clear how many leads we got, how many people on the wait list, how many candidates can we bring a month. It's very predictable. But in those early days, there's a lot, when you're anxious and you're not sure where things are going and you're trying to figure it out. And there's a lot of, it's very hard to quantify. It's very hard to quantify. And you are feeling in the dark in those months, I think. And I think that's where there's a lot of anxiety there. And you're trying to find that predictability, that consistency. And maybe you're right. Like maybe you just got to go into those situations with that mindset. But that wasn't my experience. My experience was very trying to figure it out.
Most freelancers, when you ask them, we always ask, "What are your sales number of next week?" "I don't know, Simon." "What are your sales numbers of this week?" "I don't know, Simon." But it's not true that there are no numbers. The habit of writing the numbers down and taking them seriously is lacking because they think that the numbers are too volatile, they are not reliable. Now, that's a catch-22 situation. The numbers are not reliable because you don't write them down every 7 days. And so you don't have enough numbers on paper until they become reliable. For example, freelancers can track the number of conversations they had during the week. If you start with this habit, okay, I had 7 talks with interested people, I converted 2, or I converted 0. Then you would have 7, 2. Next week, you would write 8, 1, 8, 0. If you do that for a couple of weeks, your numbers will become now more and more reliable. And if you do it for a couple of months, your numbers will be even predictable. The problem is just that most freelancers don't start writing them down, so they celebrate not having numbers. And this is something when we coach them, we help them write them down. Okay, write it down nevertheless. And after a couple of weeks, they say, "My God, that changed everything because I have data."
It's super interesting. Because I have some thoughts on this. So when I was 18, 19, I actually did a couple of bodybuilding shows, and you're very number centric there, right? You're counting protein, carbs, fats, and you're looking at your weight and your diet. I've never applied that same mentality to business, and maybe that's something I need to start doing. I've always kind of not go with the flow, but I've always felt it out. And I think I agree with you. I think my business could actually perform a lot better with a better focus on the numbers. But often in those early days, a lot of it is gut feel and stuff. But maybe even with Bento it's a sizable business, but it's still early-ish in the life cycle of that company, and I can probably approach that business with a lot more diligence on the numbers, I think, than I currently have.
I love it that you also come with the sports metaphor, because I learned this from my CrossFit coach. And
Nice.
We business coaches, we didn't have a numeric real-time dashboard at that time. But I was doing my first deadlifts and weight exercises, the 4 basic weights. And it was absolutely clear that every day that I had a spreadsheet, And I would write down today 80 kilogram, set of 5 to warm up, and then going up to that number. Because my coach would ask me every 30 days, we would measure the max, the one max repetition. And that was really important. And then there was a cycling periodized way of training every day, then once a month.
And you have a deload week and stuff. It's
exactly. And you know what happens then? Automatically, you eat better, you sleep better, etc., because you are pushing the envelope in terms of intensity. And so I was like, wait a moment, I want every client to have such a dashboard for marketing, for operations, and for sales. This is how we created the strategy sprints method.
Nice. That's cool. I like that background. Yeah, and it is funny, right? Like even with training and stuff. Like I just did a 8-week cycle. Just it was a powerlifting cycle, right? But I don't really apply that to work, do I? Like I and there's progressive overload, and there's proper like optimizations in that 8-week cycle. But it's just like in work, you just like log on in the morning, like let's go, and you just kind of go at it. And rarely do you kind of treat it like a training exercise. So if anything, I'll take that away from the call, and maybe on my walk I can think about it.
Absolutely. And I'm so curious who you nominate for the strategy award after one word from our.
Hey, if you love what you are hearing, you will love our free masterclasses. Go grab them at strategysprints.com.
You can pick only one person. When everybody's zigging, this person is zagging. Who is this person?
Yeah. Who would I pick? I can pick someone in my community. I really like I got a friend called Amar who runs a SaaS business in the maid industry. Very bizarre. I think he's doing a lot of really cool things, selling software to maids in the US, especially during COVID times. And he's a like young bootstrapped guy. He's currently living in Bangkok at the moment. Super interesting. I've got a lot of really interesting friends, man. I don't know. Can I rattle off more or?
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
Do you want just one?
How do you curate your network? How do you stay in touch in these pandemic times?
Yeah, I feel like I've got a really strong network. A lot of them I treat as like friends. Like even today, I was having a hard day today, and so I lent on a few friends for support and help. My friend Nate Ginsberg, who runs a company called Seller Flows. He buys and sells a lot of businesses in e-com. And I had questions about selling businesses. So, I can jump on a call with him and talk about that. I had some questions about Bento and e-commerce and Bento and stuff. So I reached out to my friend Alan from Spy Guy. I've got a decent sized network. A lot of that's from Twitter. Originally it was from Twitter. And then there's a couple of private communities I'm in. One of them's it's called the DC. There's a podcast called the Tropical MBA, and they got like a private community in there. Hang out there quite a lot, and I go to the conferences for that, and a lot of, I would say, very dear friends from that community, and a lot of customers. Like I reckon 10, maybe 10-ish customers pay for the agency, and more than that pay for Bento. And there's no selling there. It's just people, they come across my products and they're like, oh, this is cool. Like, oh, I need this for my business. And they use it. And if they like it, they tell others. Yeah. So I've tried to curate like a pretty friendly neighborhood online. Kind of even going back to the bodybuilding stuff again. I used to be really active in forums, the old school bodybuilding.com forums and stuff. And I feel like they were kind of the good old days because you'd hang out in forums and you'd throw up a post and things were pretty like free and almost anonymous, right? And I've tried to take that similar attitude to like Twitter and a lot of the communities that I'm in, just find like-minded people, contribute, help, don't sell ever really. And I found that the rewards of just being like a friendly person in a neighborhood tends to be, you want to be the guy that like, if someone needs sugar, they come over and they ask you, like, because when they actually need something for their business, then they come over and they ask you, because when they're comparing mentally, all the different competitors, they're like, oh, well, Jesse was helpful that one time. I'm going to pay for Bento instead of MailChimp. That tends to be how I win deals.
Absolutely, yeah. It's trust, is knowing what you are good at, and memory, being the one they associate with. Cool.
Yeah, and being front of mind, right? Because I find with a lot of products, and I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs know this, think this, selling often, like when people are buying stuff, they generally have a job to be done, and in their head, they have preconceived notions of what tools are going to help them get that job done. Already, like by the time they are then solving that job. And a lot of marketing, especially in the spaces that I'm in, is just being present. You just want to always be there so that when it comes time for them to complete that job, I need to send an email broadcast to a large list. I need to work with an e-commerce client to send automated Abandon cart emails or whatever it is, right? I plus Bento is front of mind, and they just like us a little bit better. Branding, personality, support, and that's how you win deals. It's just be present in people's minds regularly and just be a nice person. Don't aggressively sell. I see a lot of entrepreneurs do that. They meet someone new in the network and they just kind of hammer it, and you just like, it's super off-putting, and you don't build long-term relationships. A lot of the deals that I've closed have taken 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and I didn't even know those deals were going on, but they are. It's like in their heads, they're going, oh, I like Jesse, like he's been super helpful. I want to go buy his agency services, or I want to use him for consulting, or I want to buy his software. Yeah, that attitude's been good to me, at least. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 3 books that shaped you most.
I really like the book Happy by Darren Brown. It's kind of a soft take on stoicism a little bit, but it's like very, very soft and practical. I just liked it. I thought it was good. 4-hour work week. Obviously, I wouldn't be here in Japan if it wasn't for that book. Regardless of how it's regarded today, I just think it was a great book for the time I was in, right? And it kind of it opens up the doors with a whole bunch of stuff. And then the third book, I would have to. I thought I remember this. The third book. I'm gonna have to think on that again. I had it before the call, and then it's just slipped my mind. It'll come back.
Where can people find out more about you and Bento and share the journey?
Yeah, sure. So Twitter's good. So my Twitter is JESSET Hanley HANLEY, or just follow @Bento BENTO. And then shoot me a message, schedule a call, whatever. Just talk shop if you got questions. If there's any like freelancers or agencies that are struggling on that kind of precipice moment where you're trying to work out, hey, like, what do I do now? I'm stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I've got cash flow going, but I don't know where to go from here. Feel free to like send me a DM and I'll help you hash it out. That's always easy.
Who should be my next guest?
Get Amar on. He might be fun. He's a high energy talker. I mentioned him before. Or go through the Tropical MBA guest list. I'm sure you'll find a lot of really interesting kind of people that are running businesses there. I think I'm a big fan of people that are kind of running their own businesses, are bootstrapped and just figuring it out. Plus are also just doing crazy stuff, man, like raising a family in, parts of Africa whilst running a business selling to the US, right? Like that's cool. I like those businesses. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing also crazy stuff like raising a family.
I can see. Yeah. You're building an audience in the US, and whereabouts in Europe are you?
I'm in Vienna, Austria right now. And
Amazing,
our team
cool.
is everywhere in the world, but I'm in Vienna, Austria. Yeah.
See, super, like that's a fun life, man. And congrats on raising the family as well.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Jesse, for being here, sharing your journey, your wisdom with our community. And please come back soon.
Cool. Thanks, man. Peace.
Avoid trying to do thousands of things that doesn't work. We have 274 templates for your business success. Reach your ambitious goals with one-on-one sprint coach. We double your revenue in 90 days.